on on-chain data for this first round of product development. So I'm just looking at the clock, and I know I'm getting a little long-winded here. So Eric, I'll hand the mic back to you if we want to jump into the next questions.
Sure. I think that the comment of prediction there is also super important when talking about privacy and specific wallets. We're predicting what a wallet that looks like this we think it will do. We're not saying here's all the information on the wallet, here you go, because that's all there already. It's a next level thing, just to keep back of minds. Right. So we talked about investor scores, not meant to punish a low investor score, but rather reward those with a high investor score. Could we see in the future clients using Bird's investor score asking for a minimum score, let's say a 40 or 50 on a scale to 100, for a wallet to be able to invest in a given project, thereby punishing those with a lower score? So back to kind of that credit score conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, from a principles standpoint, we are not in business to tell other operators how to run their business. We are going to be arguably one of the most valuable service providers in the crypto industry, and for us to maintain that status, it's important that we are careful in terms of how much influence we try to exercise over the use of our products. I'm a big proponent of carrots over sticks, and I do believe there are ways to disincentivize this kind of behavior. But ultimately, and this is going to sound like it's a cop-out, I think this is more up to you guys than us. One of the things that crypto does better than any other thing created by man is it facilitates voting with your feet a lot easier than anyone else. So what I mean by that is, if you guys start seeing somebody using a Bird product in a way that you don't agree with, stop patronizing their platform. Stop giving them your money. If enough people agree with you, the market will correct that problem. The other comment I'll make about this is a potentially good example of why we think a DAO is important. If we're coming at you guys saying that the ethos of this project is decentralization, then why should we be the only ones to make this decision? So perhaps there's a future version of this project, this world, that involves the DAO deciding whether or not they're going to cut somebody off from a product because they're using it in some abusive way. Personally, do I want to see that? I don't think so. Crypto is meant to be open and permissionless for a reason. I'm a big proponent of using that carrot over the stick, and I think that we should be just disincentivizing that behavior by just not doing business with people that make decisions like that. So our goal is obviously to have these products be used as incentives and not punishments, but we are going to always have a fairly clear line in the sand, with a couple exceptions, of course, where we're not going to interfere with how another operator decides to use these products.
One of the questions that came up the other day in Telegram, and I don't know if it transferred to here or not, but when you're speaking to these investors, what are they seeing as weaknesses in Bird? We talk about the strengths and what we're building and all the good things. What are the questions they have?
I have to choose my words very carefully here. We are one of very few projects in crypto that can reasonably say that we've got somewhere between 0 and 2 competitors. So we get a lot of questions about that. Emmanuel, you're on this call, so I'll give you another shout out. That competitive analysis you did has paid huge dividends in answering those kinds of questions. We get a lot of questions around talent acquisition. Right now, machine learning engineers, they can command a pretty high salary from Fang and some of these other more established traditional tech businesses. So there's a lot of questions about, so how are you going to lure these guys in? And our answer there is that we're fortunate that we've got deep networks, within our team of folks that work in those spaces, and you're going to start seeing announcements about new hires and conversions from advisor to full time and this sort of thing in the machine learning space over the next few weeks. Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm choosing my words carefully is because, to be quite frank, a lot of the questioning is fairly superficial. We have a pretty compelling offering. We're very diligent in how we document, all the curves and angles of this thing we're trying to build. So typically the line of questioning isn't terribly intense. I think to some extent, people either get it or they don't. And I think in many ways, some of the decisions that these investors have made were made prior to even getting on the call. So yeah, it's always very tricky to talk about investor, facing stuff, because we have to be sensitive to the privacy of those conversations. But that's I think the best answers I could offer there.
I think that's great. So we've hit the questions that are here. Marketing, yeah, we've hit mostly everything, and I know we wanted to leave some time for the conversation of what does success look like, and where in your mind are you with that?
Yeah, so before we do that, I know the button is busted, but if anyone else has another question that they want to sneak in before I launch into a monologue here, now is the chance. Okay, so
and just let me interrupt for a second. Sorry, the button should work now.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like anyone's got a question they want to sneak in.
Okay. Just
in the bubble here, but
if anybody cares to, they should be ready to.
Yeah.
They should be able to now. So, guys, feel free to chime in and just raise your hand, and we'll get you in there.
Yep, definitely. So, Eric, I believe that question came in from CB, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a lot in.
Yeah, it's a longer question. Do you want me to read it, or you want me to just go?
No, that's good. Because I'm actually just going to zero in on one part of it. I think we've addressed a little bit of, some of these other questions that are surrounding it, but this is the first time we've ever really been asked so directly, so how do you define success? And I think it's really important to always update your criteria when it comes to success. And so this is a good opportunity for us to have a candid discussion about it. I'm going to start with a very idealistic view here, and then we'll switch gears and talk more practically about kind of the business implications. And the reason for that is, ultimately I believe that you need to be guided by principles. You need to have some kind of true north when you're working in an environment that is volatile and challenging, and pick your euphemism for difficult, as crypto is. When we have difficult decisions to make, it's often this classic rock and a hard place, and it's those times when calling upon your principles is that North Star. It's your navigation capability, essentially. So from an idealistic standpoint, the number one thing that to me defines success, and this is another thing that transcends our project, is really preserving the future of user data mining. I think that if you look out into the Web 2 world right now, we're seeing the twilight of what was once an incredibly powerful and positive innovation. This idea that a web platform can capture important and otherwise inaccessible data and then ingest them in machine learning models to create insights that are impossible to glean otherwise. That is an absolutely game-changing innovation. But what's happened is it's grown so big and so powerful that, like many things, once it's no longer in moderation, it has become somewhat evil. So I look at our goals of decentralizing this industry of harvesting user data and feeding them into machine learning models as a bit of a do or die moment for the future online experience. if we don't demonstrate that there is a balance between principal and agent here, the people that are building these models and the people that are affected by them, and out there and providing the data that they consume, if that balance isn't restored, this will almost certainly just be regulated out of existence. And some of these privacy laws that are coming up, they kind of show that. In many ways, when there isn't a good solution, people just pull out the sledgehammer and they just kill the whole thing. So I think one of the first and most important idealistic success measurement criteria is just doing our part to propel research to find a better model and preserve this important capability of the online experience. Second idealistic goal here is attracting AI talent to this sector. As I said before, the majority of AI engineers are not working in Web3. And obviously, a lot of people on this call right now believe that the future is Web3. So if we think that these emergent technologies are important, it's incumbent upon people like us to start spreading that word and bringing more people into the space that have these valuable skill sets. That's the second point. The third is, I think, the biggest pie in the sky, and that's we're here to build a team and a community that has a positive impact. That can mean that when you have a bad day, you've got a Telegram channel where you can go chat with some people. That can mean that when your coworker goes through something difficult, that you're there to support them. That can mean that when you have career objectives, like all the folks on our team have, and you have leaders that are willing to invest in those career objectives, right? Like, we're here not to just get rich and to do cool stuff with code, but we're here to make things better. And if that sounds a bit too idealistic, a bit too hippie, sorry guys, but tough. This is our model. We believe that ultimately doing good is the best sustainable long-term strategy. If anyone hasn't read it, read Infinite Game. It is really eye-opening when you start thinking about short and long-term strategies, and it can really change your views on having ideals and principles that you're practically not willing to let go of, and that guide your everyday decision making. So again, I was very deliberate in why I made sure to preserve some time here to talk about these sort of fluffy success criteria, because I think they're important, and I think they're sort of underappreciated in a sector, in an industry where there's this much money flowing around. It's very easy for people to say our success criteria is $1 billion market cap, and I'll talk about some of that stuff in a moment, but it's important to also pay attention to some of these other more softer side of things when it comes to success measurement. So with that, let's switch gears, put on our business hats, and talk about the more practical success measurement criteria. Number one, most important, profitability within about 2 years. And that's important because it's just a general protocol that when you're getting towards Series A, Series B, you need to have profitability or a very clear path to it. So that's not necessarily just an internal or endogenous success criteria. It's one that's also sort of imposed on us from the outside. The second success measurement criteria from a practical standpoint is a functional and demonstrated tripartite revenue stream. So what I mean by that is, we've talked a little bit about Web3 versus Web2 and why we are building an Oracle and also have an API. Those are two independent revenue streams. Our Web3 Oracle is obviously only going to be useful for other Web3 builders. No need to talk to an Oracle if your platform is not also on Web3. So that's one individual revenue stream. Our API is designed for either Web3 clients that don't need the properties of Web3 and prefer the simplicity of an API, or it's for companies that are not yet in the Web3 space and are looking to penetrate and need some form of market intelligence to do that. That may end up being an API that can be called. We're also building dashboard interfaces that will allow people to essentially like upload files and score,